Welcome back, folks. It's been a hot minute.
A hot minute? Honestly, I mean, the news, I guess, mirrors that.
Things happen quick. Things happen very quickly.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, I don't think it's likely that any of our audience haven't heard of what's going on, but just in case, I guess we can give a brief synopsis. In short, the U.S. is pulling out of Afghanistan, and the Taliban has very quickly pretty much taken over the entire country.
Yeah. Literally almost immediately. Earlier this week, they retook most of the northern provinces. And then yesterday, they began the siege of Kabul, which then turned into an attack. According to the Taliban, the reason they ended up going into the city was in order to stop looting that was occurring, because the Afghani government completely abandoned the city to the Taliban.
Yep, there was pretty much no resistance whatsoever. In terms of United States, like the embassy and anyone that we had stationed there, we're currently working on, I say we, the government is working on evacuating a lot of the non-military personnel. However, Biden has sent in a good number of U.S. troops, ostensibly, to oversee this evacuation. But there's a lot of people who are basically now forced to be under the rule of the Taliban, who worked with the U.S., who are from Afghanistan, who are clamoring to get visas, who were clamoring to get visas to try and get out of there, and we got, like, hardly a fraction of what, like, the people who, I guess, were crucial to our involvement in the region while we were there actually out.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say it. This is a Saigon moment.
Yeah, this is.
I don't know your opinion, but to me, this is Saigon. Our viewers might know it better as the Vietnamese city of Ho Chi Minh, but before the North Vietnamese retook the city, it was called Saigon.
And it's like what we're doing right now. It's very, very similar in terms of what happened then and what's going on. There's not much of a difference. It's the same kind of just to mirror it with that again. For all intents and purposes, we have, if we don't go back into Afghanistan, we have lost. Make no mistake, we dealt with Al-Qaeda, but the Taliban became the issue after we dealt with them. And now, at this point, we've basically given up on that front.
Yeah.
Now,
last night the Taliban declared Afghanistan, the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, gone, and the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan born. So Afghanistan, according to the Taliban, is now the IEA.
Now, it is going to be interesting to see how countries react to this, because in terms of military control, the Taliban is pretty much undisputed in control right now of the region. But no NATO country is going to be the first to actually recognize the Taliban as the proper legal authority there. So the question will become, which happens first? Do we decide to go back in and do something about it? Or is the international community going to start recognizing the Taliban as the actual proper government?
Well, for one, I know this looks terrible for Trudeau, Johnson, and Biden, honestly. But Biden's looking real bad right now, overall. This was, especially considering he went on vacation as this happened, he looks very unfavorable to the public. But Boris Johnson's already furious. He's demanding action. They think this might lose Trudeau the election, because their election's coming up soon, because they saying he failed to. No, this internationally, China is the only country so far who said they would recognize the caliphate as the legitimate government of Afghanistan, which is kind of concerning.
And it's important to note that China's motivation for that, it really has nothing to do. They don't actually care who runs the region. They just want to be able to work with whoever is in their Belt and Road Initiative, building infrastructure and tying countries in the region economically to China. So as far as Chinese motivations go, as much as I don't like that they're, I guess, supportive of this, it is the rational thing that you would have expected China to do, even looking at this before any of it happened.
Yeah. It's it's heartbreaking because, both of us have friends that are in the military. Let's just say this. It's the suits, not the troops, that failed. This 100% falls. Not honestly, you know what? I'm going to alleviate a little of pressure off Biden. The Afghani government fled as soon as Kabul was in range of the Taliban. They ran.
Yeah, I mean, on another note, though, I think not to alleviate the, I guess, responsibility that our politicians have on this, but the American people have for years been complaining about, why are we still in Afghanistan? Why are we still there? And it's not really much of a surprise that we have two presidents in a row who helped transition our way out of Afghanistan, arguably, well, not even arguably, now evidently, prematurely.
Well, and now I think this is
now, like the.
This
while
is where we're going to debate.
It's not. Yeah, so it's not clear that I guess a majority of Americans did, but there was a very vocal portion of America who have been trying to get us to pull out for a long time, and it's clear that at the very least that something like this was inevitable if we went down this road of pulling out of Afghanistan when we did. Granted, that doesn't mean it was handled well at all. In fact, I don't think anybody would argue that this was anything other than a failure.
Well, no, this is 100% a failure. I was seeing Secretary of State Blinken yesterday talking to all these different news, saying, we achieved our objective and anything. And I'm like, yes and no. Like, we got the upper echelons of the Al-Qaeda, but all that did was send all of them to go fight for ISIS and the Taliban. So,
right.
It's just very disturbing, the fact that, there was no way this was going to end well. We were saying that before. No. Regardless if it was Trump or Biden, someday the Taliban was going to come back into power. And you and me have our disagreements, because I think if it was Trump, the Taliban would have waited a little longer. I don't think they would have reacted quickly, because, again, we still have over 50,000 troops in the region. So, we talked about earlier, when the deal first was made and the Taliban tried to do a sneak attack, Trump just missiled them. Right now, we still have those 25,000 plus the 5,000, and I don't know if it's true or not, and That's why we're going to have articles at the bottom of this, but apparently there's word that 7,000 more troops are being sent, which to me is concerning, because now that's telling me this isn't the end. You know?
And what's interesting to note there is, while I've always been someone who, I guess, didn't think we should have left in the first place, now that we have, going back is the worst case scenario for, like, I as much as I want us to do something about this, now that we've left, we've made it so much harder so that going back is going to be just, I mean, obviously we haven't entirely pulled out, but, like, getting our operations back up in the region is going to be just an immense challenge, and there's no way that it can end well either.
Yeah, no, this was, again, like I said, this is going to be like Saigon, you know, everything fell apart once the North Vietnamese were at the gates. It's just, it's unfortunate what's happening, and the worst part of this, like we were saying before, it's the civilians. Because we have been there long enough that people have been born and never raised in Taliban rule. Like, we've been there for over 20 years. So, you know, there's 20-year-olds and things who've only been Americanized, who, unfortunately, they're probably going to be targets for the Taliban. Sadly.
Yeah, there are thousands of people who have in some way, I guess, I don't know what tangentially even helped the U.S. while we were there. And the Taliban's not going to be happy about any involvement.
Yeah, like...
So it's like, and we've seen that they're incredibly violent, even with the citizens that they're, like, of the other regions that they've been in control of, regardless of, I mean, I guess not regardless of, but in addition to people who have helped American citizens. And in many ways, Kabul was like the last bastion of hope for those people who had helped the U.S. while we were there, in terms of their chances of living safely. And that I guess safety has been stripped away from them. And that is the real tragedy of this, is the citizens and
it's
that
heartbreaking.
Now just don't have a way.
It's heartbreaking because there's already this horrible thing, very similar to Saigon, where you had these two Afghani guys who actually, like, jumped on top of a B-17 inside the wheels of a B-17, hoping to, like, escape, and they died because they fell when the plane started going up in the air. And, you know, like, it's gonna be bad.
And to be clear, I completely believe that they knew the risks of what they were doing and that they preferred the possibility of going out on the plane there than to whatever was left to them by the Taliban.
Yeah, well, it's like the guy who jumped out of the tower. It's like he knew he wasn't going to survive, but he was like, I'd rather go by my terms than this.
Right, and this is very much a developing thing. We'll see in the coming weeks what direction the world goes with for this event. But this is absolutely, I guess, massively impactful news around the world.
Yeah, it's just... you see something like this, and, you know, we've never, in our time, because even the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan, it was the matter of months until we won. Well, we didn't win, but, like, in Iraq at least, it was months before we got to Baghdad and overthrew Saddam. And even in Kabul, in Afghanistan, like, we took Kabul within months. They retook this entire country in less than a week. Like, And this speaks to another thing. It's like, how much do they really want us? Like, and I'm not trying to negate the people in Kabul, but I'm talking about Afghanistan in general. If they fell this quick, the military clearly wasn't loyal to the government. There's stories of Afghani defense force just giving their guns over to Taliban.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they were presented with a choice of either give up and live, or fight on and maybe die. And I don't know. Obviously, there are people who would prefer Taliban rule, otherwise the Taliban wouldn't exist. But I think the vast majority of people there probably just don't want to have to, like, give up their lives guaranteed.
Well, we're in this weird...
So they'll...
Yep.
Yep, no,
you finish.
I lost my train of thought. You're good.
Okay. We're in this situation, though. It's like... It's not like Napoleon returning from Elba, entering Paris. You know, there's not crowds of millions cheering as the Taliban retakes the city. It's just like... They were like, F it. They're like, take over. They're like, we don't care.
Yeah, it was one of those where it was just, they showed up and nobody really fought back, because why would they at this point?
Like, if the military... And that was the big thing they were saying with the police. They were like, the police were just handing over their guns. And that honestly, like, when your police force, your civil police force is saying, we don't want to fight, it's just like, what was this? I don't know. You know, it's a tragic, everything's just so tragic today. It's just like, why? What was the point?
Yeah, it, like, any success that we've had in the region for, like, for pretty much 2 decades is mostly backtracked. And it's just really tragic that the amount of violence that led up to this amounted to nothing.
Yeah, this is literally Saigon. It's the same thing. What was it, 15 years we were in Vietnam? How many people died and suffered because of it? And then what did we walk away with?
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and you know what? Something I can put on Biden? The way we evacuated was terrible. When they were sending out the reports, you know, saying the Americans are just leaving, like no one knows what's going on, whole commands are like, we woke up and they were gone. And then, but I thought in that scenario, we were taking our weapons with us. Why were all these weapons left behind for the Taliban just to take?
And I think the reasoning was we wanted to get the people out of there as soon as possible. But it does leave, I guess, it leaves a lot to be desired in terms of how we handled this. Like we could have done this slower. We could have done, like, even though I disagree that we did it at all, we could have gone about leaving in a much, I guess, more organized and less panicked way. It was almost like we panicked and pulled out fast as possible.
We look like rats jumping from a sinking ship.
That's exactly it.
It was chaotic, and it's like, you leave all these weapons behind. The freaking Taliban, who, when we first invaded, were still using the guns they used against the Soviets. They have Predator drones, they have tanks, they have Humvees. They're not using, the Ford pickups anymore. They're using actual military-grade equipment. And it's like, and you know me, I was pro withdrawing, and again, I heard someone say this today. They said this was always going to be bad, regardless who the president was. There was always going to be residue, but it's like when you pull a knife out, there's going to be blood, unfortunately. But the thing is, why wasn't it organized? Like, President Biden had extra time. Like, there was more than enough time to get all this ammunition and gear out and do an orderly retreat, because it's not like they were getting on these jets and going to America. They were getting on these jets and trucks, and they were just going over to, like, Iraq and Syria and Saudi Arabia, where we have bases. It's not like they were, it wasn't like Napoleon's retreat from Russia. They were just coming back to bases in the region. So I don't understand why it was such a delayed action. And why, at the end of the day, the blood is going to be on the current administration, what happens. Regardless if Trump was the one who made the deal or not, Biden's the president right now. And it's unfortunately on his hands.
He did say that he stuck by his decision to pull out in the way that he did, so there's no reason not to put it on the person who followed through with it. Now that doesn't leave Trump blameless.
Oh no, he but like I said, we knew this was going to be bad, whoever did it.
Oh yeah, like there was no route where this happens, I guess, smoothly. But it's clear that the route that we did take was one of the roughest routes that I think we could have taken.
Like, back to the knife analogy, this was like twisting the knife as we were pulling it out. It's like we made it easier for them because we left all these bases abandoned, we left all of this land open, and again, they retook the country in less than a month. I mean, less than a week. Like,
now, it is fair to point out, though, that I don't think anyone thought that this was going to go as quickly as it did. But that just goes to show the, I guess, failure in our ability to analyze that situation and realize how quickly it was going to fall.
Yeah, it's it's upsetting. Just overall, it's, these poor guys. It's, these. And it's the other big thing is how the evacuations were handled. Because, again, we knew, much like Saigon, what was going to happen. We knew these people's lives were at threat, but, they set up... Did you read how they set up the, asylum seeking?
Very briefly.
Okay, so...
Like, I skimmed through.
They literally set up, a gymnasium with 2 desks and 2 State Department people, and it literally sounded like your worst nightmare of the DMV. And there were thousands upon thousands of Afghanis going in with their family and children, begging, please, we need to get out, they're coming. And they're like, okay, just hold your number and we'll get to you. And it's like, what are you doing? These people's lives are at threat.
And that comes down to not the people who were there actually doing the work, trying to, I guess, process their, visa applications and their attempts to get out, but comes down to the amount of resources that we didn't dedicate to that. Because we knew this was gonna, we knew how many people, I can't say for sure that we knew, because I guess I'm not involved in this whatsoever, but I have to imagine that we knew how many people were going to be seeking asylum, and that we knew how many people would not just require it, but even narrower than that, the number of people who would qualify for, the pre-existing visa requirements.
Yeah, it's just, honestly, everyone's saying, oh, this person needs to resign, this person needs to resign. Do I think Biden should resign? No. This was an unavoidable catastrophe. I think Chief of Staff Milley needs to resign. Because, remember, he was the one talking a big game. He's like, oh, well, they have 300,000 troops that the 75,000 Taliban won't even stand a chance. I'm not afraid and everything. You're talking this big game and everything, and then look what happened. And honestly, I think Anthony Blinken should resign. Freaking Saigon, I think half of the president's administration resigned after that. This, honestly, though, overall, this has not been a good week for the Democratic Party.
No, I mean, it hasn't been exactly, foreign policy-wise, I've noticed that a lot of Americans have been, I guess, traveling down the road of, almost apathetic dismissal of other countries and wanting to focus entirely on the U.S. And I get the idea that our citizens come first, but at the end of the day, the U.S. has a unique position in the world to help people. And this is just a prime example of what happens when we don't put our all into doing that.
Yeah.
And I think also, in terms of American public opinion, I think there's no way this doesn't massively shift public opinion towards maintaining our involvement around the world. It's just kind of a shame that this sort of disaster has to happen before any sort of public opinion ever gets changed. Is some just horrible event has to happen.
I think this is going to be a bigger problem for the Democratic Party in specific, because they, like we just said, are having a rough week already. And President Biden has not been polling well. And this just plummeted his polls. Because, this is a kind of event that sticks with the voters. It's like...
Yeah,
it's like the rock...
This is something that we're gonna remember.
Yeah, it's like the protests.
But not even... It's more than that, because this is far more historically and, I guess... far more impactful on the world at large, to the point where this is going to be something not just that's written in history books, but this is going to be there are going to be units dedicated to this, just like there is to Vietnam. And it's this is it's a stain on our record as a country.
Well, and someone, I don't know who this was. Again, I've been just trying to divulge and read about as much as what's going on. Someone said this is going to be Joe Biden's legacy. Of everything that will happen in his administration, unless we go to war with some country in the next year and we beat them, this is what his administration will be remembered for.
And that's absolutely true. And to the degree that it doesn't even matter how successful he may or may not become in domestic policy in the coming years, this will what happened in Afghanistan will overshadow almost anything that could, unless there's almost no way it won't be overshadowed by what is happening right now.
Yeah, I literally have no idea in what way this, like there's no recovering from this. And now that we're off the subject of actual Afghanistan, we could talk about like the American perspective on everything. There's really, because already the French are calling us out, the British are calling us out, the Canadians, the Australians, like everyone's like, what the hell did you do?
And unfortunately, we're just sitting here with our hands up like,
we're like that,
nothing.
We're like that meme with the fat thing from the Star Wars movies, where it's just like sitting there with its hands crossed. We're just sitting there getting yelled at by everyone. We're like, what do you want us to do? Like, I have not been very secretive on this podcast that I am very anti-interventionist. And you've been very plain that you think we need to have a presence in the world. Even as an anti-interventionist, this sits bad for me.
Yeah, as much as I think people were anticipating us pulling out of Afghanistan to be a win for anti-interventionism, it's not even remotely. Like, it's just clear that it's a loss on all sides. Nobody's gaining from this aside from the Taliban. And I guess
but really,
possibly
what has the
Chinese economic infrastructure building companies.
What has the Taliban gained? Because they're just back to day one.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've regained their position.
This was a absolutely pointless endeavor. Because we are literally, like I said to you before, we are back to September 10th, 2001. Nothing, there's been, the only difference between today, the 16th, 2021, and September 10th, 2001, the only difference is now a lot of people in Kabul and other provinces in Afghanistan are in a lot of trouble. That, to me, that's the only big difference.
And you can look at the fact that we, I guess, took out Al-Qaeda all you want, but as far as the saying of cut off the head of the snake goes, we cut off the head of a hydra.
Oh yeah.
This is just the absolute worst case scenario of we took out their leader and now they're back with a vengeance.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing about them. We just killed the most public of the leaders.
Right.
There was many of them. It's, again, it's just a very unfortunate situation right now. Like, my only big criticism overall, because, again, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, this was Trump, it would have been done better. Do I think it would have been a little different? Yes. But at the end of the day, you're ripping a Band-Aid off. It doesn't matter who's pulling it. My only criticism is the leaving the armaments and weapons. That's my biggest criticism. Because before, if we left, okay, we're fighting guys that have 1970s and 80s Kalashnikovs and M16s and stuff. But now you have left them with a full arsenal of modern day weapons. So I'm just curious, and I feel like this is something not only the administration but the Pentagon need to answer for, the fact that all of those weapons were left behind. And I don't want to hear that, oh, well, we were giving them to the Afghani army. I do not believe the United States intelligence community would be fooled that bad by a military that was as disingenuous as the Afghani military proved to be. Like, this didn't happen by accident. Like, there's no way the CIA didn't see this coming.
And unfortunately, I don't think we're ever gonna get a satisfactory answer to that.
Oh, never.
But actually, I don't know that we'll get an answer at all, let alone a satisfactory one.
You know what? Biden's going to do a speech today. He's going to, try to play it off the way they all do. Like, oh, this is unfortunate. It's this and that. It's that, But then when, they're having public executions and stuff in the streets of Kabul, that's on him. And honestly, in a way, it's on us. That was very morbid.
Well, no, I mean, that just mirrors the sentiment that I was getting at earlier about how, like, the American people have been pushing for us to pull out of Afghanistan for a while. And now, at the very least, we can see that the American public has no idea what they're talking about when it comes to foreign policy. Which is, I mean, their opinion's going to change now to probably be pro-intervention, and they're still going to have no idea what they're like. There's no way the American people are ever going to know what they're like referring to when they talk about foreign wars. There's no way.
Well,
and I mean, to be fair, it's not like you can really expect them to be like expect most average everyday citizens to be knowledgeable on these subjects.
Well, and that's why we trust our leaders. It's just one of those,
right? It's just one of those, whenever you hear an opinion like this from an everyday regular citizen, you can't, you got to take it with a grain of salt.
It's overall, they should be this. Again, we trust our leaders for this reason, and this is what happens when you have a government that, and this is something that I feel has gone a little untalked about for a while. Joe Biden promised to have the most transparent government this country's ever had. This has been the most tinted government I've ever... You never know what's going on. Yesterday, while probably one of the worst since Saigon, international disasters happened militarily, where was he? He was at Camp David. The White House released that picture. I'm like, I don't care that he's sitting there. I want to know results. And then when people are asking for quotes, we find out the press secretary is suddenly on vacation. It's like, where's the vice president? Why has the Pentagon not said anything? Because I saw the assistant to the assistant secretary of defense stumbling over himself, talking about the situation. It's like, we are in such a closet with these people that they're... It's... I feel like if they were a little more honest about it, I wouldn't be as upset as I am, But it's like no one knows what happened. And, the President of the United States is at Camp David and not making announcements or explaining what's happening, while we have, like I told you, I had friends that were in Kabul helping with the evacuation. And even the military in Kabul were saying they had no idea what was going on. They just heard explosions. And at that point, it was, get these people out of here, and we'll get briefed tomorrow. And that's... Continue.
That just goes to show the disorganization that, I guess, is, like, permeating through this entire event. Goes all the way from, like, starts at the bottom, but goes all the way up to the very top of, like, just, there's no clear communication as far as what's going on and what the plan is, and that's always gonna end up in some sort of, failure.
Yeah, and they were already using the protests and the defund the police, and again, what happened on January 6th was terrible, but don't doubt it. In 22, every single Republican is going to use this, inflation, the scandal, like, this is going to be so politically weaponized, it's going to make our heads spin. It's, me and you privately have talked about this a lot, about the Democrats are scared for the next election. And that's why they've been rushing all these things through. I'm actually shocked the infrastructure plan got through. But that's neither here or there. This just put a very bad taste in the mouth for our current government. Because, you know what? Let's just remove ourselves from Biden and the executive branch. Why have we not received any statements from the legislator?
I mean, the legislator, I have to imagine, moves incredibly slowly. So I'm not super surprised, even if I am disappointed.
But you know, and again, because I know you and me do our best to be moderate, and I'm not meaning to be like, oh, well, when Trump was president, but literally when Trump was president, you had Nancy Pelosi, Schumer, every day immediately saying something back at him. Even the Republicans, well, I agree with President Trump. Oh, I don't agree. These people, like, now that they're in command, it's like, we're just gonna do what we want. And, these...
I mean, one of the things is it's possible we're not hearing what they have to say partly because of what the media is focusing on. So it's very likely that given the, I guess, density of the current news cycle, that they've said things and it's just been lost because nobody cares. There's more important things going on.
Well, and honestly, after watching all this media, it's making me pretty sure they want us to go back to war because nothing sells news better than war, right?
I mean, that's true.
Like, they keep saying they're like, well, this should be rectified. We needed to... I saw Jake Tapper grilling Blinken, which again, I think Blinken's wrong. But he's like, we need to go back. I'm like, why?
But, like, it's clear that as much as us assuming he is wrong, it's clear that he, in the position that he is, knows more than any, like, average, than most, like, news media people would know about, like, whether or not we should be going in or out.
Yeah, it's just a very...
Like, he just has more information than anyone else does, so...
I'm not gonna lie, and when I say this part, I'm gonna make sure I have a picture of him during these interviews. He looks as lost as everyone else, which...
Which is very,
Like, I said...
descriptive.
I said this the other day.
Or fitting.
I'm like, it really concerns me when the people who are supposed to be governing look terrified. Like... I'm looking at him, and he's like, no, everything's fine. I'm like, you don't look like everything's fine. You look cool.
Yeah, because obviously not everything's fine. Like, and anyone can see that.
This is just a very terrible situation, Again, it was unavoidable, but it's the extra, like I said before, the weapons... all that stuff, because honestly, 100% the reason they cut through Afghanistan so quick was because they had the freaking Humvees and everything. They had the armored cars, and the Afghani military was just like, screw this, I'm not fighting these guys.
Alright, I don't know if you have anything else to say other than, I guess, good luck to the Afghani people. I hope.
Pray for Afghanistan.
I don't expect things to work out, but I hope it does.
Yeah, I really,
somehow.
And like I said before, blame the suits, not the troops, because thank you for those who are viewing this that were military. Thank you for your service. What happened was not on you guys. You did your duty and you served honorably. It's on the leaders. It's on your generals, such as Millie. And it's on them, not you. You guys, you did the mission and you completed your mission.